As a polymath, Leonardo da Vinci effected change within every field of academia he touched. His impact on the artistic world epitomizes this assertion, as his insertion of subtle symbolism within his art either undermined the historicity of the work he created or reflected his own perspective on modern culture or events. The Adoration of the Magi acts as a contemporary symbol by reflecting on local Milanese and Florentine culture through the representation of Christ's interaction with the Magi. Leonardo's Adoration of the Magi was commissioned in 1481 by the San Donato Brotherhood to create an oil canvas rendition of the Nativity scene, pointing the time in which the three Magi presented their gifts to the Christ child. Da Vinci worked on the painting for over a year, but left for Milan later, leaving the painting seemingly unfinished, much to the dismay of the San Donato monks. Despite its seemingly unfinished nature, it has slowly become apparent to me that Leonardo left the painting intentionally incomplete. The symbolic nature of the painting is conveyed to the audience through the combination of his stylistic choices, omitted nativity scene characters, and placement of historic buildings and biblical symbols. But before I can continue to analyze the symbolic nature of the Adoration of the Magi, it's necessary to understand the different scenes that take place within the foreground and the midground of the painting. First and foremost, Jesus is surrounded by the three Magi, typical of the traditional nativity scene. But Leonardo intentionally chose to omit Joseph, the cattle, the stable, and the shepherds from the nativity scene, and instead injected both a battle scene, a crumbling ruin, and a large crowd into the story's legend. This large crowd centering around the Christ figure characterizes him as much more a traditional Old Testament role as the conquering Savior, rather than the meek and forgiving man that the New Testament described him as. In order to properly understand Leonardo's symbolism, it's also necessary to see these three components of the painting. First, the slaughter of the bull by the mounted horseman in the back right area of the midground. Second, the crumbling ruin in the left area of the midground surrounded by the fighting men. And third, the contrast between the children's and the adults' reactions towards Christ's presence in the crowd. Before we move on to analyze Leonardo's subtext within the image, first, let's fast forward to 1938 in order to understand why Leonardo's choice to leave the painting unfinished was so relevant. Housed in Florence's Uffizi Gallery, the Adoration of the Magi stood proudly as one of the most prominent exhibits within the museum. When Adolf Hitler and Hermann Göring toured the Uffizi in 1938, Hitler, and especially Göring, found the Adoration of the Magi, Birth of Venus, and Adam and Eve paintings to be the most stunning pieces of art in the gallery. Despite their love for the portrait, neither Göring nor Hitler claimed the Adoration of the Magi for their prospective city, Germania. While it remains a mystery as to why both men left the painting untouched, it is my belief that they left the Adoration of the Magi as its unfinished nature would reflect poorly on the prominence and uniformity of Germania. Hitler's future city would be powerful and lack for nothing. Having a prized piece of incomplete art may convey the message that the Third Reich was content with complacency. But back to the matter at hand. The incomplete nature of the Adoration of the Magi opens up a multitude of interpretations that one could take in regards to this painting. In order to steer us onto the right track, I'll let this clip of Robert Langdon start us off.
The symbols are a language that can help us understand our past. As the saying goes, a picture says 1,000 words, but which words? Interpret for me, please, this symbol, first thing that comes to mind, anybody.
Hatred, racism.
Ku Klux Klan.
Yes, interesting. But they would disagree with you in Spain. There they are robes worn by priests. Now, this symbol, anyone?
Evil.
La fourche des diables.
In English, please.
Devil's pitchfork.
Poor Poseidon. That is his trident, a symbol of power to millions of the ancients. Now, this symbol.
Madonna and child. Faith, Christianity.
No, it's a pagan god Horus and his mother Isis centuries before.
Robert Langdon makes an important point. We cannot let our personal religions confound the meaning that an artist is trying to convey in a painting. Da Vinci was not a religious man, so what would he have to gain by accepting this commission from the San Donato Brotherhood? After a while, I realized that Leonardo not only used the painting to recreate the classic nativity story, but he also injected a modern tale of conflict between the city-states of Milan and Firenze. Since the mid-1200s, the Visconti family had ruled Milan with an iron fist, and consequently led their city-state into war after war with Firenze and Venice. When the last Visconti died in 1447, Francesco Sforza stepped up as the Duke of Milan to fill the power vacuum left in the Visconti's place. Leonardo directly modeled the Christ child in this painting to reflect Francesco Sforza's reign in Milan during the 1400s. When Sforza came to power, the ruling elite of the foreign nations were weary and had little trust for Sforza. But the citizens of Florence, Venice, and Milan came to love the man. In Leonardo's painting, Jesus is surrounded by both shocked and horrified adults, representing the non-Italian foreigners, and cheerful youth, representing the reinvigorated Italian citizens. Sforza was a savior to the Milanese people. He created an efficient tax system that generated surplus revenue for government projects without disenfranchising the poor. He then proceeded to tear down the old Visconti infrastructure and create new public projects, in the process hiring many of the unemployed within the city-state. In his lifetime, the government constructed and opened to the public the Ospedale Maggiore, restored the Palazzo dell'Arezzo, and built the Naviglio di Adda, a channel connecting Milan with the Adda River. Most importantly, Sforza developed a deep and personal friendship with the Medici family, and consequently ended what seemed to be an everlasting war between Milan and Firenze. He even proceeded to implement a balance of power tenet which removed Italy from negative foreign entanglements for a full century. Sforza was the conquering savior that southern Italy needed. Da Vinci's image perfectly reflects Sforza's coming to power. The crumbling of the ruin, symbolic of Jesus' restoration of the temple, also symbolizes Sforza's reconstruction in Florence and Milan. Jesus' revitalization of the Jewish and Gentile spirituality was mirrored by Sforza's implementation of a modernized tax system. And the presentation of the Magi's gift to Jesus is also paralleled with the Medici's peace offerings given to Sforza. The slaughter of the bull, symbolic of the fall of paganism due to the rise of Christianity, is reminiscent of Sforza's conquering occupation of Genoa and Savona. In short, Sforza is essentially the Christ figure of 1400s Milan. Leonardo's objective in creating the Adoration of the Magi was not only to illustrate an alternative reincarnation of the nativity scene, but also was meant to pay homage to Francesco Sforza and parallel the Italian duke's history with that of Jesus's.